snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys, I am here today to do a book review, and the book that I'm going to be reviewing is actually my Readalong book of the month, which I host on my fantasy and sci-fi read-alongs group on Goodreads, so I will put a link to that down below. Next month we are planning on reading two books. We are planning to read the second one in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, which is Dead House Gates, and also we are planning to read The Red Knight by Miles Cameron, so I will put links to both of those books and book discussions again in the description, and you guys can go and sign up to that if you want to. The book that I'm going to be talking about today is the first one in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, which is by Erikson, and this is Gardens of the Moon. This is a really, really complicated story to try and describe for you, so I'm going to do my best, but I don't know how well it's going to come across, so let's get started. I really struggled with what to rate this book. I wasn't sure if I was going to rate it 3 or 4 stars because there were moments within this book that I was so engaged, I was really, really intrigued, and intrigue is a massive part of this book, huge part of this book. It's all about guessing what's going to happen next and looking out for little clues and kind of doing treasure hunts and Easter egg hunts, because there are a lot of foreboding things in this that come back and haunt you later on. So I wasn't sure if I was going to go 3 or 4, but in the end I went for a 4 out of 5 star rating because it was so layered and there's so much complexity and work behind this book that makes it really, really interesting. This is 100% unlike any other book I've ever read. There are so many layers and complexities, different subplots and different characters and different interweavings of the world and the races and the religions and the languages. Just everything was so well woven together that it was very, very intriguing. Much of this story is also dictated via luck and chance because this was originally written based off of a Dungeons and Dragons world that was created by Ian Esselmont and Erikson together. They created a world which they were going to play D&D in, and then they used that world that they had crafted over many years and created to go on and write these books, and Esselmont also has his own series of books which is focused in the same world. So they both became authors writing in the same world. This is the first one in Erikson's series. It was actually written in about 1980 something, I think, but it didn't get published until 1999, and that wasn't until he actually moved to the UK, because Erikson tried to get this published in the US where he lived originally, but every time he went to talk to people about it, they said it was too complicated, it needed to be less complicated and easier for people to understand, and that's really not something he wanted. He wanted it to be a layered and a complex and a complicated world so that people could really feel that satisfaction when they did work out something and they did understand things and everything kind of came together. I really, really approve of his idea of sticking to his ideals, wanting to make this a complicated and exciting read as opposed to a mundane, everyday, run-of-the-mill story. It's really not, it's very unique, and it's really due to him and holding off on making it really dumbed down. So I really appreciate that, and in this volume there is a foreword by the author which explains all of that in more detail, and he talks about expressing your own opinions and making sure that you achieve what you want to achieve with this book. If you're going to write a whole series, you might as well do it the way you want it to be done. So even if it's a 10-year wait, once it finally came out, it was a big success, and it's still a massive series in the fantasy world today. What is this story about? We follow a whole host of characters in this story, and they live in the Malazan Empire. The Malazan Empire has basically been spreading across the lands and has been expanding over the past few years under the Empress Lysine. Basically, they are trying to take over everything, and one of the few towns that is still independent of the Malazans is Darujistan. And Darujistan and the Malazan Empire, we focus on characters from both of these places. Some of my favourite characters within this book were Tatasale, who is a mage. She has a really interesting backstory, and we get to learn a little bit of that as we go through. Slowly we get more and more revealed about her. I thought that her use of the Deck of Dragons, which is basically a kind of tarot card system in this world and is really, really interesting, her use of that was really exciting and made me really intrigued. And her plot was also really engaging because it took quite a few twists and turns that were highly interesting, highly exciting, and just made me really engaged with the story. Krupe is another one who I really loved. He is a very kind of eccentric, bonkers, slightly mad character who talks about himself in third person all the time, and he has a very great personality and kind of aura around him. He's very happy and bubbly and jumpy. Even when he's in a sad mood, he still kind of maintains this facade and this personality. He has peculiar dreams, and his dreams are kind of bordering on reality. He has a kind of dream world where things can actually be affected in the real world, and his dreams are always something to watch out for in this book, because a lot of his dreams hint at what is going to happen later on, but it's so loose and so semi-there, you don't notice it unless you're really paying attention. So you do need to focus when you read this book and try and pick up on all of the clues, because there are loads of clues, loads of foreshadowing that hints at so much that is to come. And once you get to the thing that is being foreshadowed, you're like, yes, I remember that, I worked that out before, that's really interesting and that's really cool. So it is something to watch out for. But Krupe is a really fun character. The way that he views himself and the way that he views others is really hilarious to read about. He seems to have many secrets and many hidden motives, and we don't actually learn that much about him himself. But I really love his character and I thought he was great. Sori is a young girl that we get to meet in this story, and she basically has a heart of ice. She is dark, she is cold, she's scary, yet there is reasoning behind all of this, and if you're careful and you pay attention, again, you can work this out. She's a very intimidating presence to everyone around her. They're always scared of her because she is a cold-blooded killer, and I found her story to be one of the most interesting for the amount of twists and turns that she goes through, and the amount of personalities and different changes in her personality that we see. I also thought that her storyline was one of the most moving because of what happens to her and the things that she has to go through, because she has to go through a fair amount. Whiskey Jack is a really great character as well. He is the head of the Bridge Burners, and the Bridge Burners as a collective are a really great cast of characters, but if I went into them all it would take me ages, so I'm just going to talk about Whiskey Jack, who is the leader, and he is slightly cynical old man. Now, he's not particularly old, but he's definitely the older of them, and he is kind of cynical. He's lived his life and he's seen the disruption of war, he's seen the darkness of war. He's a little bit dark-hearted. He doesn't really think that there is much redemption in the world, and he's kind of a little bit low a lot of the time. However, that doesn't mean to say that he's a bad leader. He's a really good leader. He manages people really well. He talks to his team really well. He's very engaging. And as a character, I thought he was really, really wonderful to read about, because he was a kind of dark, cynical character himself, but he was a kind of really chirpy, happy character to his team, and he was kind of taking one for the team and being this excellent leader, which I liked. He also has a kind of firm honesty to himself, like he's always honest with himself and he knows what he truly believes, even if he doesn't put that across to all of his other Bridge Burner friends. But I really enjoyed him as a character, even though he's slightly doubtful of any redemption. Crocus is another character who I really enjoyed. He is a thief in this story. I liked him because he was a kind of young, fresh perspective on things. He learns a lot at the same time that we do, so his storyline allows us to kind of learn things, which I really liked. And his story took off with a really flying start. We're kind of thrown into a massive action scene, which was one of the most interesting scenes. The other scene that I really loved was the kind of dining room scene. If you've read this book, you probably know what I mean, because that was very tense and very exciting. But Crocus is a great character overall, and he just was a fun, playful character, which I liked seeing, because a lot of the characters in this are very dark or cynical or kind of resentful. He wasn't, and he was a really chirpy, happy sort of character. There are so many other characters in this book, like literally loads, just as many as Wheel of Time or something, I'm sure. But I couldn't go on and mention them all because there are so many. There are also quite a lot of bad characters, or more bad characters, because everyone is slightly morally questionable within this story that I could talk about, but again, I don't want to spoil who's good and who's bad, and everyone is slightly questionable anyway, so I'm just going to let you know my favourites, and those were them. There's a whole list of very dominating and scary characters. There's mortals in this world, there's gods, there's ascendants, there's other races that are completely made up for this world, there's dragons and there's beasts, There's warrens of magic, and there's mystery. Everything in this book has meaning. That's something I need to get across to you guys. It's like nearly everything, nearly every other sentence, it seems, has a kind of foreboding meaning to it, and like a second meaning to it if you pay attention. There's so much that's always going on. There's never a kind of dull moment. I didn't find myself bored by this. I just found it like an intense read, but that's good. I liked that. I enjoyed that reading experience because it was something I hadn't had before. Even the most mundane of scenes, or what seems like the most mundane scene, might actually be setting up for a massive thing to happen very soon. So you've got to pay attention when you read this. It's not a light read by any means. It's definitely one you have to think about, but it's a really engaging and enjoyable read. If I had to describe the plot to you guys, I'm not even sure if I would be able to, because there's so much going on and there's so much that still is not explained that I don't think I would be able to justify it all and kind of give you a comprehensive description. I don't know anywhere near like the full ramifications of what happens in this book and how that's going to affect the rest of the world. I don't know why everything that happened yet, because I haven't met all the characters and found out all their reasoning yet. So in terms of the plot, there's not much I can give you except that it's about these two kind of warring people, the Malazans and the Darujastans. And then you kind of focus on all of their storylines and you see each of the characters on their own storyline that all interconnects, and it's crazy, but it's really, really good crazy. I will say that there are some which are really action-packed, intense, very, very cool scenes, and there are some which are very slow and tense and very kind of creepy scenes, shocking scenes, brutal, dark and imaginative scenes. All of this was definitely in here, and like, yeah, it's about 700 odd pages, and it's 700 pages of awesomeness because it's just really crazy and good. This book has a bit of everything, and that is one thing I loved about it. It's basically got something for everyone. I think I enjoy just sitting and letting the story wash over me the most, because that's a great way to approach this book. You don't want to go in and try and understand everything, because there's no way that you can. You just want to go into this and sit there and let the story wash over you and see what you think of it as a whole, because it is the sort of story that you're just not going to understand everything until you've read a couple more of the books. This isn't a book where I was waiting for the ending because I thought it was going to be really exciting and the massive build-up. This is a book which I was constantly on a roller coaster. I never knew what was going to happen next, and I never knew whose storyline or where we were going to go next, but it was interesting the whole time. I enjoyed the journey, I enjoyed following the characters, I enjoyed seeing their paths and seeing the routes that they took and what they chose to do and why they chose to do it. It's an adventure to read a book like this. If anything I've said in my review up until this point has turned you off, I wouldn't advise reading it. If, however, all of what I've said, all the complexity, all of the intrigue has intrigued you, then maybe this is a book for you. I definitely don't think that this is a book that everyone will enjoy, or a series that everyone will enjoy. And I hosted a read-along where I spoke to lots of other people from all over YouTube, BookTube, Goodreads, and various people liked it and various people disliked it. So it's definitely not one for everyone. For me, I really enjoyed it and gave it 4 out of 5 stars. But some people just don't like this format of writing and don't like that it's too wishy-washy in places, but also really complex and also really crazy. So there's a lot that happens in this. And if you're not interested in a book like this, then I wouldn't read it, because 10 books is a big commitment to a series like this. And yeah, I'm going to try and read one every month. That is the plan. So if you want to join in with us, you totally can. It's totally up to you. We're going to be reading one every month and trying to get the series finished this year. I'm super excited for number 2, which is Dead House Gates, which will be happening from the 1st of February to the end of February. You can join in if you want to, it's totally up to you. I would love to hear any of your thoughts if you did take part in the read-along, if you commented in the Goodreads group, if you have just read this and you happen to know about it. Let me know whether you liked it or disliked it and what you thought about everything that happened. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye!
Me and you gonna have a little